Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today I just have kind of a rambling video. I'm not going to actually be shooting, but I have a lot of videos shooting the two of these on multiple different rifles. In fact, I think this 5-25 has been mounted on almost every gun I own, with the exception of maybe 122. I think it's been mounted on all of them. I've tried out this one heavily, and I'm getting to that point with a 3-18. It's been on a lot of rifles. I'll just really briefly talk about the build, and then I'm just gonna, again, rant. It's not real orderly. It's just kind of the thoughts in my head and some of my experiences, just so you know what I think of the two, a little bit of a comparison between the two, as I said I would do prior. So first of all, this is sitting on a Dragonfly Mark II. This is the 5-25 by 56. Dragonfly Mark II is chambered in 177. Really like this rifle, very accurate 177 caliber rifle, and that's why I was willing to put the 5-25 on there. I know it's overkill, seems like a lot, but if you consider that this has 26 mils of internal travel, that's far enough for most air rifles. You know, most guys are shooting really, really close. I shoot pretty far. So about 200 yards with this one consistently. I will take it out there, but the majority of my shots are 100 yards and in. So I really like this setup. It's got some infinity rings right now with an infinity bubble level on the other side. Very happy with the setup overall. Very happy with the optic overall. It's been on so many rifles on my channel. I just want to try it on everything and see what I think. And the fact that this one, as well as the 3-18, both have the same mil style reticle with 20 mils of holdover is very important. It's my favorite and preferred type of reticle. The center dot is just slightly larger than some competitors out there, and so sometimes maybe you want a more precise dot, especially for target shooting, and you want something really small. For my eyes, I have to be honest with you, I have trouble picking up the really small dots. A lot of people don't. It's just my issue. I can't see those as well. I can't pick them up on certain backgrounds as well, especially not black targets or targets that have lots of hits on them. So if you're at a comp and let's say the 600-yard target has just been getting hit all day, nobody's missing that one, sometimes it's a little harder to pick up the really tiny black dot. These two with that reticle, again, these are first focal plane, so the proportion is the same at 18 power on both of them. I very often don't exceed 16 to 18 power on the 5-25. It's nice to have a reticle dot that is easy to pick up on the two of them, on even a target that's been impacted several times or is dark coloration. And so I like the reticle between the two of them. This setup has been just flawless. It's very good. Might be a little overkill for some people, but not for me. I wanted a high quality optic on here, and I got one. And so the 3-18, now I'll talk about this setup a little bit. It's just a CZ457. By the way, both of these rifles are sitting in Sunwayfoto products. This one is mounted up in an Arca clamp, and this one is mounted up in a Sunwayfoto SM86. I have reviews on a bunch of Sunwayfoto stuff, and so if you're looking for high quality gear that is not as expensive as the ridiculously priced stuff, go ahead and check this out. Really high quality gear. I like it. I shoot off it. I compete with it. It's my gear. I like it. Moving on to the rifle. It's just a CZ457 with you know, a light trigger in it. It does have a tuxedo grip and an Arca rail from Sunwayfoto on there. A little bit of Picatinny. I have some, let's see, these are FX no limit rings. I prefer FX no limit rings over the Eagle Vision Infinity rings. I just think these are kind of goofy. They're also side, they meet up at the side. I can't remember what that's called, but the caps themselves for the rings, they are angled rather than just vertical, and it really bothers me, and mounting it up is goofy. All sorts of problems with it. They do have cantilevers in there, which allows me a little freedom to do things on certain air guns with short, you know, unnecessarily short rails. But I just prefer the FX no limit rings, and I think if I had to shoot something under recoil, like maybe a 223, I would go with the FX no limit rings. Moving on. Okay, this particular CZ457 does have, oh yeah, let's say, maybe throw this in there. This is a Fab Defense stock. It is an adjustable wrap C, and so this one, it's adjustable. It's like a carbine kind of stock, and it's on a Matador Arms side folder. I just get a lot of questions about that kind of gear, and so I want to throw that out there before I get into the optic. The optic is really my favorite part about it, with a Mischief Machine bubble level. That's cool, stands out, really easy to see, and low light as well. I can see that red vial pretty well. This one has more internal elevation than this one does, even though they have the same reticle. So they both have 20 mils of holdover, which is excellent. A comment on that, I know a lot of people say you'll never use the 20 mils. Well, I have a number of times, and not just on these small calibers, although exceedingly often with these 2 calibers. I've used the full 20 mils. If you have good data, you can back it off to that, you know, right around 6 power on these, and you can still see it. And if you have a lighter target, you can make impacts on there. You can't see your impacts well, but you can make impacts. And so good data allows you to do things like that. I like the 20 mils. I know most guys would be really content at 15 mils, and they're not willing to shoot at the end of range of the glass as well as maxing out their elevation. And I want to comment on that because I agree, actually. I try not to shoot at the very edge of the glass as often as I can. I try not to. I want to keep everything centered up, including that reticle in the glass. I try not to zero these at the max end of range. It's not that they lose spring tension, and it's not that they've been inconsistent in travel. In fact, if you go check out Element Optics online, they have a collimator, and they will show you demonstrations of these optics going through the collimator and passing perfectly. I couldn't even tell what degree error is. I don't have a collimator, I don't know, but they just pass perfectly. And so tracking is totally trustworthy. I feel pretty happy with it. I've never noticed any problem at all with tracking, even though I've run these out to max range. There's a good reason though that I choose not to zero them at the extreme ends of range. One is the degradation of glass quality. It does lose some of that vibrancy and clarity, and you're angling things so much it gets a little goofy. So I try not to do that. I am using a lot of internal elevation though. On the 3-18, this one has 43 mils, this one has 26 mils, but I have 10, 20, I think I have 38, 20, 30, yep, yeah it is, 38. I have 38 mils, and I rarely dial the full 38 even. I'll dial like maybe 37, 36, and then hold over because I can still be in the glass at like, man, 15, 16 power. With this 22, shoot past 600 yards. I can still see my splash and spot hits. I can even, on a good day, I can still see hits on paper and on my target with this. It's just really impressive. So I don't choose to run it to the extreme ends of range, and here's my reason why. I think when you do zero it at the extreme ends of range, you're gonna feel a little gumminess, and I just don't know what that's gonna do over time. And so it's more of a me thing. And I think that the company themselves, I believe I saw Matt in a video maybe mentioning it's just, you know, maybe you could do that, but you're not gonna get the most out of your optic. You want it to be a little closer to the center of range, and that's what I'm trying to do. Even with 38 mils, it's still really clear. The best NRL comp I've ever shot, my highest score, was shot with this optic on this short little 16-inch rifle with a kind of a loose stock. Honestly, that was a little concerning, but highest score I've ever shot was with this setup right here. And I know I had to dial a lot for that match, and this little 318 did everything I needed it to. As far as which one do I think I would recommend for most people, I've been getting that question a lot. A lot of people are trying to decide between the two of them. I'm gonna tell you that I'm gonna push people towards the 3-18 most of the time. I don't know a whole lot of people who have to have more magnification. If you're shooting tiny little targets or varmints, you might appreciate that, but if it's a hot day, you're gonna have to back it off anyways. And so the comparison between the two is if both of them are on 18 power, they're both just as clear in my opinion. The reticle and the dot is the same size. Perhaps if you have a really trained eye, or maybe your subconscious will pick it up, maybe you'll see more light collection. Maybe you'll see more light collection. Remember, these are both 34 millimeter tubes, and this one's a 50 millimeter objective, and this one's a 56. That's not a huge difference. And I think Element will be some of the first people to tell you that there is technically a difference, and if things are done well, if the math is done well, it's built correctly, there is objectively, no pun intended, there's objectively an advantage to a little bit bigger bell at times. It's not true of all optics, by the way. It's not inherent, it has to be done right. And for me, I'm just gonna be honest with you, I guess I'm not trained enough to see it. When I put these two at 1,000 yards, a little bit before sundown, I mean, the field of view is bigger here. Sometimes that gives the appearance of a couple different things, but both of them, 1,000 yards, a little past 1,000 yards. At sundown, about 50 millimeter objective, 56 millimeter objective, I just couldn't tell the difference between the two as far as light goes. They kind of look the same on target, and I had this at 18 power and I had this at 18 power just to try to make it similar. Maybe if I had moved it up to 25 power, and if this could have gone to 25 power, maybe that's where I would see it. It's not an exactly fair comparison. There's a few variables there, the least of which, being me, or maybe the most of which, I don't know. I know that my eyes aren't perfect, but I just didn't see like a glaring obvious difference between the two. And so for my personal recommendation, most people, I'm going to push them towards the 3 to 18 because you get kind of the same features. You're going to get these really cool scope caps. You get the aggressive knurling on the turrets and the dials, the magnification ring. That's important to me being in Minnesota because when it gets cold out or if it's very hot out like today, I need the extra grip on there, especially in the cold though. I need something I can grab onto. So you get some similarities between the two, but 3 to 18 and 18 power is enough to do a lot. Some people shoot a mile with 18 power and it's enough. When the heat is really cooking and the humidity is high, air quality is poor, or the mirage is just really intense, I'm going to shoot this at a little bit lower power anyways, and I certainly will be backing it off of this. So unless you're shooting maybe like really tight groups, really small targets, pretty close or pretty far, you know, this could have its place for you, having a few extra power. But I think just most people, the shooting they're going to do, plinking, a little bit of hunting, some competition, 3 to 18 is a really good range. And I do some shooting where I need a little bit more power than 18 power, but for the majority of the rifles and the shooting I do, I can also use this. And I also have shot sub MOA groups using this optic out past 1,000 yards on steel and on paper. And so I know that an 18 power is not going to hold me back or stop me from doing it. The 25 power, when I get to 1,000 yards and I'm shooting for tiny little groups, yeah, I'll admit, as long as the mirage isn't bad, it's nice spotting. I can see a little bit better. That's true. I can see a little bit better. But between the two, I think both of them are winners. I cannot give you a conclusive, I have to have this one and you have to have this one or that one. I don't know. If you need the extra elevation, this one's your clear winner. Both of them are illuminated. Both of them are very bright. If you don't need extra elevation and you don't necessarily mind having a little higher power that you might not use all the time, this is good. If you think you just want the best of all of it, get them both. And so I have them both, and I can kind of trade them out on different things. The tracking has been very true. Light collection has been good. Turrets have been great. Levers have been good. The viscosity in here during cold and warm, as far as I can tell so far, has been trustworthy. I don't have any issues with anything about them. I'll just warn you that if you do zero it at the very end of range, you're going to feel like the turrets are a little bit gummy. And they still worked, still functioned properly, but it just felt a little funny. And so that's just something to notice if your plan is to shoot, 43 mils of distance, or this one's 26 mils. If you're really shooting that far, yeah, sure. I guess if you're going to the end of the range, that's just something you should know. Otherwise, the rest of us, people who are shooting practical distances or even just, you know, pretty far, long range, general long range, both of these will cover you. This will definitely cover you in your centerfire calibers, like all of them. This one will also cover you in that, but it'll also cover 22. And so that's kind of why I have them set up the way that I do. This one right here, obviously a little extra power to see those tiny 177 holes and shoot tiny little holes even at close distances, you know, 50 yards. And then the 3 to 18, a little bit more competition based, a little bit more hunting based. Kind of makes sense for me how I set them up. If you have one of these, go ahead and comment down below what you have it set up on and the furthest hit you have with that optic. Thanks for watching, guys.